The Dog Show with Nick and Joe.
Man, I'm getting good at that.
The Dog Show.
And welcome to the Dog Show, everyone. I am Joe. Nick is not with us today, Sean.
Nope.
He is out in Austin. He is training a couple of dogs for a young lady that goes by the name of Mia Khalifa. She is in the entertainment industry, and so anyhow, Nick has been out there for about a week, and he says things are going pretty well. First dog has pretty high anxiety, a couple of issues to him to talk about on next week's show. So I'm pretty excited to hear that. He's been sending me some videos. So anyhow, he's actually going to be dropping and releasing the first dog's before after video this afternoon. So looking forward to seeing that. Have a couple of guests with me today. Mr. Ben Goldman. He is a Deputy Fire Marshal, Accelerant Detection Canine for Stafford County here in Virginia. And we also have Mr. Paul Ludwig with Iron Dog Canine, and he has the movie out called Canine Guardians. Welcome, guys.
Welcome.
Ben, tell me a little bit about yourself.
So I work in the fire marshal's office here in Stafford for about 15 years now.
Okay.
Been a canine handler for a little over 2.
All right. And you liking it?
Love it.
Loving it. Ben's a good friend of mine, so I get to see him pretty often. Paul, welcome, sir.
Welcome.
It is an absolute pleasure to have you on as well.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
I was on the police department for about 25 years, with Canine for about 18 years in the D.C. area. After retiring about 3 years, I've been retired now. Started a company, Iron Dog Canine, a few years back. And now I'm traveling, doing seminars, working with law enforcement and military, focusing on that.
Awesome, man. Glad to have you guys on. We're going to get into some pretty cool topics today for episode 7, right? Is that what we are on, 7? That's awesome. All right, so let's get into our show sponsors. First, we want to thank Bite Ranch Canine Training Academy, Mr. Nick Morrow. Thank you, sir, for sponsoring this show. Guys, check him out. His videos are legit. He's based out of Huntsville, Alabama. He does police canines. He does pet obedience, working dogs, dog sport. He does it all. Very, very knowledgeable guy, former Marine. And, so definitely check that guy out. And then, of course, we have the show sponsor, which is DemonABiteSuits.com, owned by my man, Chris Pell. And, man, I can't speak highly enough of Demon A Bite Suits. I have 2 custom ones, and they fit beautifully. I can move in them. I can train dogs in them. And actually, we have Chris on the line with us. Chris, you there, buddy?
Yeah, I'm here. How's it going, guys?
Good, man. How are you today?
Doing great.
Awesome. So Chris is the owner of DemonABiteSuits.com, and he also has his own training company out there. Where are you at? You're in Colorado, yeah?
Yeah, I'm up in northern Colorado, based out of Loveland. Complete Canine Training, that's the name of the business here, and I work with everything from pet dogs to local law enforcement and canine officers.
So what got you started in dog training, Chris?
Really, it just kind of happened by chance, honestly. I got my first German Shepherd, and I always wanted a German Shepherd. That was my first dog when I was a little kid even. And was walking down the street one day, and one of my neighbors, never met him before, he said, "Hey, bring that little dog over here." And so I went over there, and he's like, "What are you planning on doing with them?" Kind of just started talking, and then he had 6 German Shepherds in his backyard. He was doing personal protection dogs, and so it just kind of started that way.
And then you started DemonABiteSuits.com, and as you know, myself and all my training buddies, we all use your site and go through you for our custom suits. Anything new up on the website that we need to check out?
Not really. I mean, I'm always running some deals and contests and stuff on my Facebook page.
Okay.
So there's always an opportunity to save some money on a new bite suit if you participate in the contests.
Awesome.
But yeah, I've got the best prices on Demon A suits out of any authorized distributor in the United States. That's probably the newest thing, as I heard through the grapevine, that everybody else's prices went up and mine stayed the same. So
yeah. Well,
and for that.
yeah. Well, and one thing I can vouch with you, and I mean, I can't really say this for any other company because I haven't worked directly with them, but the customer service you get from Chris at demonabitesuits.com it really is second to none. That's how I actually met Chris, was when I ordered a suit. I hit him up on Facebook and said, man, I need to get a suit. And he said, whatever you need, man, let me know. And he made it as easy as possible. We did rush shipping, which I think was just an extra $100, right? Something like that.
Yeah, an extra, I think it's $125, and it gets your suit here in 4 weeks.
And I had mine in 3, believe it or not. So a custom suit, had it in 3 weeks. Where are they being made at?
They're made in Spain.
In Spain.
So, at the only Demon A factory in the world.
Okay. Very cool. So what else you got going on, man? Anything newsworthy?
I mean, there's always news going on in the dog world. There's a bunch of canine drama going on right now.
There is.
And very interesting how it's playing out. I'm kind of waiting for all the facts and things to come out before I form a complete opinion on it. I've got a half-formed opinion, but I don't want to, throw anything under the bus. But my good friend, he's got his complete opinion formed. JJ Sabris,
yep.
Out of
I know JJ.
Proven Dog Training down in New Mexico. He went as far to burn that company's bite suit.
Wow.
And that was a statement. And a lot of people got behind him on it, and he's already got a new bite suit on order from donations that came through.
Goodness. Wow. Yeah, there is a lot of drama going on in the dog industry right now. If you guys don't know, in the professional working dog industry, but as I kind of share Chris's opinion on that, I don't have enough facts to make my own, and I will wait before I talk about my thoughts on it. I want to make sure everything kind of comes out and is factual before I start spitting opinions, right, Chris?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I mean, I've got the people that I trust and that I know, they've got their opinions, and I'm closely aligned with theirs, but I'm not gonna go out and start bashing anybody or saying anything negative about
anybody. For sure.
Until I got all the opinions, because I don't want to burn any bridges. And the pun intended, but it is a dog-eat-dog world in the canine industry.
Yeah, no doubt about that. So anything else going on, man? Any events or anything you're going to or have coming up?
I'm going to next weekend, actually, I'm heading to Arizona to work with Herb, who is the owner of Demon A. He's putting on a French ring seminar, and it's going to be in Arizona. It's a 3-day thing. I unfortunately have too much stuff, so I'm only going to be able to stay for 2 days. But that's going to be a really great opportunity. I've never done any of the French ring decoy work, so always looking to learn, and it's going to be a great opportunity for me.
Who's throwing that on?
I want to say it's like Copper Creek French Ring Club.
Huh. I'm gonna have to look into that. When is that?
It's the 16th through the 18th next weekend.
Gotcha. All right, cool, man. Anything else?
Man, there's always stuff going on, but not off the top of my head. Really get my detection program up off the ground and running.
Okay.
Really starting to pick up things there.
And what do you do out at Complete Canine Training?
So
what do you offer?
Everything from basic obedience, behavior modification, up to personal protection dogs, and then I contract with local police departments as well as their trainer or decoy.
Awesome,
problem
man.
solving. So I love working with the law enforcement. I love working with those guys. They're a blast.
How long has Complete Canine been up and running?
So Complete Canine itself has only been up and running for since September.
Oh, okay.
Previous to that, though, I was doing business under my original business name, which was Culebra Canine. But just nobody could spell it, nobody could pronounce it, so decided to go a different route, something picks up the branding a little bit and a little bit more professional and more
smart man. It's funny.
Hey.
I tell people to follow me on Instagram at Jay Zetzelberger. I haven't had one additional follower because I refuse to spell it out.
Nobody can spell your last name. Every time I go to like tag you in something, I always put like Joey Z.
Maybe I'll just make it
forget.
Z. That's a little bit simpler, right? Maybe we'll try that out. Look, Chris, appreciate you coming on the show, man. I appreciate your ongoing support with the show. I know you and I share similar beliefs as far as, trying to make this as raw as possible and give the community, whether it's basic pet owners or the working dog community, the rawness, right? Tell them the truth, whether it's opinionated or factual or, just tell it how we see it, right?
Absolutely. I'm 100% with you on pretty much everything you guys have ever said on the show. I don't think I can even pinpoint one thing I've been like, I don't know if I agree with that.
Well, when you hit that, you let me know before I have you back on so you don't call me out, all right?
I can't make any promises.
I hear you. All right, Chris, appreciate you having on, buddy. We'll talk soon, all right?
All right, sounds good, Joey.
See you, man. All right, good to have my buddy Chris Pell with DemonetBiteSuits.com. Check out their website and their Facebook page. Super, super good guy. So I want to touch into a couple of news stories with you guys, and let me know what your thoughts are on this. So the New York Times just posted, let's see, out of dogs that are registered in New York, I'm going to give you the list of the most popular breeds, and I believe that this may actually surprise some people. Maybe it won't. All right, let's start off with the most popular dog in New York, in the state of New York. What do you guys think it is?
German Shepherd.
Paul?
I'd say a lab.
It is a Yorkshire Terrier. That is the most popular popular dog in the state of New York. That actually surprises me.
Yeah, me too.
I guess maybe in the city because that's where it's heaviest, with population. So, but big dog, big city, man. Come on. So then it goes on to say the Shih Tzu is number 2, another small dog. Chihuahua, number 3, another small dog. And number 4 is the Labrador Retriever. And then finally, coming up at the end of the list is the 5th most popular dog in the state of New York is the Pit Bull. That actually makes me pretty proud. I'm happy to hear that. So there is your list of most popular dogs in the state of New York. Now, this next story I have, this is fucking awesome. I didn't even know this was a thing, and I know if Nick was here, he'd call bullshit on it. But Nick is not here, so no one's going to call bullshit on it. This is actually done by Fox 8 in Cleveland, Ohio. Did you know that they can clone dogs now?
No.
It is an actual thing. I didn't realize this. I'd never heard about it, but it is for real. Like, this is 100% true. They have successfully, let's see, I believe 200, just over 200 dogs they have successfully cloned. And the process is they begin with the genetic preservation using a small skin biopsy taken from the animal by a vet. The tissue sample can be stored and preserved in liquid nitrogen indefinitely for $1,600. Now, that is not the price it costs to clone your dog. That is just the price to store it.
Right.
The cost to actually clone your dog is fucking insane. 50 grand. So people are spending it. I mean, over 200 at this point. They're doing it. I don't know if I like that idea. I don't know if I like the. I think it would kind of freak me out. I mean, what do you? Here's my question: what do you name the dog? Do you name him the same as the dog that passed away, or?
I've done it before, which is a mistake, but yeah, I don't know. It's
a weird thing. So anyhow, guys, check that out. I will put the link on our Facebook page, The Dog Show with Nick and Joe, and let us know your opinions. Would you pay $50,000 to have your dog cloned? I'm gonna go out on a limb and say my wife would say yes. There is a 0% chance that I would do it, but everybody has their own thing. So anyhow, we'll put those stories up on the Facebook page. Mr. Ben Goldman, Deputy Fire Marshal, Stafford County. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, sir.
So I first met Ben a few years back, and his beautiful dog, Duchess. Man, she is a gorgeous dog, and she is smart as hell.
She is.
How old is Duchess now?
Duchess is 4 years old now.
Yeah, we don't want to hear about you, Ben. Tell us about Duchess.
Yeah. Nobody wants to hear about Ben. Everybody wants to hear about Duchess.
She's 4 now.
She is 4 and
crazy.
doing great.
Yeah. So when did you get her? What was the process like? Tell us everything, man.
Okay, so started back in probably roughly 2012, 2013 time frame. We started looking, the county or the fire department started looking for a dog that could sniff out accelerants after a fire. We were running a lot of fires then. There were a lot of arsons back from the 2008 era coming up through 2012-13.
Right.
So we filed some paperwork for a grant, and we received the grant in August of 2015. We were awarded the grant, and I received Duchess.
Okay.
I spent 200 hours of training with her, just me and Duchess.
Wow. And that was before work started, right?
That was before work started, yes.
And I feel like a lot of people don't even realize that there's accelerant detection canines out there. I mean, I'll be the first one to admit, when I met you and you told me that you had an accelerant, detection canine, I was like, oh, I didn't even know that was a thing.
I get that question once a week.
Yeah.
What does she do?
Yeah.
What does she do?
And so 200 hours of just that?
200 hours of just classroom training, physical training.
And do you have to recertify or?
Have to recertify once every year.
Okay. And she is your partner everywhere, right?
24/7.
24/7. Yeah, I sometimes Ben will stop by the office here, and we get to play with Miss Duchess. She's the most friendly. She's social,
very social. She loves the attention.
But one thing about her, man, that I've noticed over the years is that nose. Like, even when she is not working, good luck getting that nose off the ground, right?
It stays on the ground.
So tell us about, so if you have to get recertified once a year, what do you do when there's no fires going on? How often are you actually working with her?
So we work every day.
Okay.
We do some kind of training every day. Duchess is a food reward dog, so that means what that means is she's required to smell some kind of accelerant or training aid
before she gets the
reward, which her reward is her food.
Now, do you operate on like a variable reward system where you're maybe giving her food 1 out of every 3 fines, or are you giving her food every fine?
Every fine.
Every fine.
She gets a reward every fine.
Now, do you ever are practicing with her for, let's just say, dinner, for example, and you actually don't put any accelerants
Absolutely.
out? Yeah, very
Absolutely.
cool. Very cool. Because not all the time
she's going to find something in a fire.
Right. So give me the process of what it's like. So fire happens at a single family house in Stafford County. Departments show up, put the fire out.
After the fire goes out, that's when our work starts.
Okay. Tell me about that process.
So we would use Duchess to go in and do a sniff, open air sniff around in the structure.
Okay.
And she is trained to sniff out minute amounts of accelerants.
All accelerants?
All accelerants.
Oh, wow.
I will say all. Yes.
So
Diesel, gasoline, Coleman fuel, lighter fluid.
So is she looking for because I'm assuming when she walks in, she smells it right away because it's a burnt down house. You know, she's looking for the strongest. She's taking that scent funnel to the strongest point and saying that's where it is.
That's what she does. She follows a scent funnel cone. She'll follow that right to the source.
Okay. And then when she gets to the source, she gives you her passive alert. Yeah.
She alerts by setting.
Okay.
And she will not move until she gets her reward.
Okay. And then what? So she gives you the passive alert. At that time, it's boss or partner, I guess you should say. She gives you the passive alert that she found it, and what happens next?
She gets her reward, and then we move on. We go to another. We move on. Continue to search or sniff through the residence.
Okay, so she does that. She goes through the entire house. She found. Let's just say she found one.
That's all I need is one.
Okay, she found one. I'm assuming her job's done for the day. We put her up in the truck, and she gets to take a nap, right?
Yep.
But your job just now starts. Right? So tell us about that process.
we would collect that. We would collect where she alerted. When she alerts, I'm going to mark that area, and then we're going to go back and we're going to collect it.
Okay.
And then we're going to send what we collected off to a certified laboratory, where they will analyze it and tell us what it is. Very
cool. Now, because I'm ignorant in this, and I'll be the first to admit, how well will that, say it was arson, how well would a dog alerting hold up in a courtroom? I'm assuming
the dog is. We're just using the dog as a tool at this point.
Okay, so she's just a tool to say
something is here,
and then the humans come in. The deputy fire marshals, the fire marshals come in, and they do the investigation to draw up the case. Right?
Correct.
Awesome. Well, do you how many fires? Do you know how many fires she's been on?
Approximately 75 fires over the last couple years.
And she's had some successful.
She's been very successful in finding accelerants in some.
Very cool.
And then there's some that we go to just because we know there's nothing there.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I don't want her to think every time she sees a fire.
That's important, right?
Right. That's very important.
Yeah.
That every time she sees a fire, that she's gonna get a reward.
Yeah. I mean that makes total sense. So. But she clearly knows her job, right? I mean, you've done a demo for me here, and I was floored. And I teach detection, and
right.
It's one of my passions. And watching her work was really incredible. And the both of you guys, really, it's a team.
It's a team.
Yeah,
it's a team.
Yeah. So she is your partner during the day, and then what does she do at night? Does she go to the kennels or?
No, she stays with me. She lives with me.
She goes home with you, huh?
24/7.
Yeah?
24/7, man.
Yeah? How
just like a family, the family dog when we go home.
Mixes in with the kids and the wife.
She loves the kids.
Yeah?
She loves the wife. She just loves it.
What's cool about Duchess is because she's so social that you can take her out anywhere.
Yes, absolutely. I go to elementary schools. I go...
Yeah.
Nursing homes,
yeah.
Places like that where people are at, and she just fits right in with them because she's social.
Yeah, and she's a great advocate for the county. I feel like, especially for the canine, side of the county work. She's always wagging her tail, anxious to get pet. If you can get her nose off the ground.
If you can get her nose off the ground.
So she's definitely awesome. We're going to be posting a picture of Miss Duchess, and maybe we can do a demo after the show, and go Facebook Live with it if you'd be okay with that, just so we can show everyone what it
Sure.
looks like. How many? Do you know how many accelerant detection canines are in the state?
I believe there's 7, I believe.
So
altogether.
7 total in the entire
In the
state.
entire state of Virginia.
Wow. And 1 in Stafford County.
There's 1 in Stafford County.
And are you only limited to Stafford?
No, sir. I'll go to Prince William. I'll go Northern Virginia, Prince William, Spotsylvania,
wherever
King George,
she's needed.
wherever she's needed.
Are you ever kind of like, man, who am I? You know, it's like, oh man, if it was just Ben, it's like I'd never get that call, but because I got Duchess with it. No, that's awesome, man. Well, do you think that there needs to be a more light drawn to this, more accelerant detection canines in the country, or because I mean, it definitely doesn't compare to the number of police canines. Now, obviously, the jobs are a bit different, but do you think we're at the right number right now, or do you think more?
Oh, no, there could be more.
There could be more, right?
There absolutely could be more.
I mean, because the dog's nose is, it's absolutely
amazing.
incredible. Like, they've done studies on the dog's nose, and they, some studies will say, like, they're 10,000 times more powerful than
the human.
But what the fuck does that mean? I mean, what is, honestly, like, you could tell me, Joey, my nose is 2 times stronger than yours. I'd have no clue what that means, because I can only smell what I smell, you know what I mean? So I couldn't imagine being able to smell 10,000 times better than I can right now.
I kind of equate it to like going into a pizza place.
Okay.
You go into Pizza Hut, what do you smell?
You smell pizza.
A dog smells everything different, separately.
Smells the
They
ingredients.
smell the ingredients
like-
of the pizza.
I like where your head's at, Ben. I like that. That's a good analogy. Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely incredible. I also, I really enjoy doing tracking and trailing. And one of my personal dogs, Bandit, he's a little older now, so he doesn't do it as much, but man, he's a beast at it. But it's crazy to watch him, when he was in his prime, going on a mile trail in the woods, left turn, right turn, left turn, left turn, left turn, right turn, and hit it every single time. It's absolutely incredible. If you were to send me into the woods and say, hey, Joe, go find Ben, yeah, fuck, man, I'm going to be out there all day if I find you, Maybe I'll pull out the drone or something. And, but there.
And you talk about that, how the dog finds you quickly. When you're tracking, Duchess is the same way in a fire. She takes what could take us up to 8 hours to find that source. She finds in a matter of minutes. So it saves us, it saves the county, or saves the fire department time.
Yeah, man hours. Yeah,
right.
Saves them man hours.
Saves them man hours, and it could save a cost of. It cost us to send that stuff to the state lab.
Yeah.
So instead of sending 20 samples and hope we get 1 back, we send 3 and we get 3 back.
Yeah.
That come back positive for some kind of accelerant.
Man, it really is incredible. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
For what you do. I mean, it really is. It sounds like it's very successful, and hopefully this show will draw some attention to that, to where other counties will join suit. They'll at least look into it. Talk to you, call you up, call your chief up, and say, hey, what's the success rate? Because the dogs, they have capabilities that we'll never possess.
Right.
There's dogs that smell out cancer before doctors can detect it.
It's crazy, I know.
And that's, you can't replace that with a human, and it's like, let's open up the minds of these officials that are making these decisions, and let them know that, hey, not only are we going to get, a higher success rate, but here's how we're going to save you money in the process, because at the end of the day, for counties and states and all that, it does come down to money.
Right.
We're not naive and, to not believe that. So if it's going to save them money, it's going to get them better results. Why not be open to looking into it at the bare minimum, right? So for all the chiefs and and state and county representatives out there listening, look into it. I mean, seriously, what do you have to lose to at least make a phone call to Stafford County and ask them about their success rate? Richmond City actually has accelerant detection canine out there as well, correct?
That is correct.
So there's two that you know about: the City of Richmond Fire and Rescue and Stafford County Fire and Rescue. So, Ben, thank you. You're a good friend of mine. I appreciate you coming on the show. You're going to hang out with us, right?
Absolutely.
Awesome, man. Mr. Paul Ludwig of Iron Dog Canine. Man, it is an absolute pleasure to have you on here.
Thank you, Joe.
You're very welcome. So a couple of years ago, maybe it was a year ago, I don't know, I can't remember. My wife and I were we were looking at something on YouTube, and I can't remember what it was. Anyhow, Canine Guardians movie crossed our. You know how you go on YouTube and you're looking at like music videos. Next thing you know, you're looking at unicorns playing golf. 15 minutes later, how one video brings you to the next. So anyhow, so Canine Guardians, the movie, came across, which was about an hour and 25-ish minutes.
Yeah.
And we said, let's give it a look and see what happens. And of course, in today's society, our attention spans are about that big. So we watched that entire movie, man. We were sucked in from the first minute, and it was absolutely. And this is, I'm not plugging Paul. I mean, I am, but I'm not doing this because I have to. I watched this movie before I even knew who Paul was. And then I started researching him, and I'm like, man, this guy knows his shit. And so the movie was absolutely incredible. I recommend it all the time to people. You got a great thing going out there in King George, Virginia with Iron Dog Canine. Paul, tell us a little bit about how you got into training.
I appreciate all the comments too.
Of course,
about the movie. It was something that I was very passionate about, trying to get out to everybody, and give kind of a look at from the true law enforcement side, I would say, from my perspective. And I think that's very it parallels many law enforcement officers out there. But I started basically videoing when I was training with my department, when we were doing basic scenario training or tracking or whatever, and I used it as a tool to follow guys and put it on video so they could analyze themselves and how they were working their dogs. Because you guys probably know, as trainers, a lot of times you see things different than what the handlers are actually doing. And when sometimes you confront them with that, they'll tell you you're full of shit. Yeah. They're like, I never did that, or my dog never gave me that alert, or my dog never turned his head, my dog never showed me this.
Right.
So it was a good way to start videoing people and then letting them see. And now I did this for myself also. Because again, I think that when you're running behind a dog, sometimes you're very tunnel vision. You're very focused on certain things, and you miss a lot of things. So I think it was kind of a great way to up our training, basically. And then one day I started working with Sam Edmonds, who fantastic decoy from the DC area. His point of view and his perspective out there on how to work dogs from a realistic point of view also. Yeah. We kind of came together. So when we came together, I came from the law enforcement side, he came more from the street, and basically got together and started training dogs together, and had a lot of success with that. Very realistic training, very realistic scenarios, and I think that we were making a lot of the dogs' levels come or get a lot better. Yeah. So one day when we were training, we had a filmmaker that came down from Baltimore, and he said, "Can I come out and video your training session?" And at the time, we were thinking, I wasn't really thinking about anything about it because I've already videoed people using iPhones or whatever. And, 4K is pretty fantastic when you're using these little iPhones now.
Yeah.
But he came down with like a $30,000 camera and a thing called a Red Epic, so people out there would know what it was. I wasn't aware of it at the time. But he did the short 5-minute video of us training the one day, and I was absolutely blown away. I had 6 dogs on the street, and I think my first 2 dogs, I had maybe 2 pictures of myself with them, one at graduation and maybe one time somewhere out in public. But a lot of the handlers, they don't get the chance of having memories of their dogs or having anything on video with their dogs.
Yeah.
So when he showed this video to us, we kind of got the idea of, and he presented an idea of like, you guys should make a movie together about doing this. And I was all for it. I was still in the department at the time, so I had to be careful of what I was doing. But I was all for putting something together, again, as long as it was from my perspective and Sam's perspective.
Sure.
And not putting anybody out down there, but there's a lot of stuff that comes out that that isn't really correct out there, or it isn't realistic enough. And so I wanted to stay true to that, and that's why we came up with the idea, and then we started filming, and we had almost 2 years of filming that we put together, and then ended up putting the movie together, putting it out.
Man, that's really awesome. And one thing I was telling you earlier, in the break room over there, is the one thing I like about the movie the absolute most is how raw it is. It's not your regular dog movie. It's not your typical, cookie cutter. You guys are, you can tell nothing is staged. It's completely raw and organic, and you guys are out there with these dogs. There's one scene in the movie where somebody says, "Hey, I got this badass," as Cody would say, Cody Talent, PH 5000,
Right.
beast. And Sam's like, "All right, let's put it to test." And he comes after Sam in a hallway. It looked like of a school. And Sam, all he did was like scream at the dog as it was coming after him. And what did the dog do? The dog shut down
Completely.
And it's like, okay, well, maybe, these dogs that are, PH 5000 certified, and
yeah.
maybe their nerves aren't what we think it is. Are you noticing, or have you noticed that to be the case in police departments?
Yes. Again, like Cody said, I totally agree with that. Or, the BRN number 9999933.
Yeah.
To me, honestly, I never came from that side of it. I used it from a different perspective. It was always the dog that was in front of me.
Right.
Some of the people that we would have to actually go and choose a dog from, a kennel that we were choosing from, we're going through 30 dogs and picking 2 that we would use that would fit our program well.
Right.
But yeah, that was a point that Sam really wanted to put that point out too, because basically it can get you killed in real life.
Yes.
This is not for points. This is not for thing, and it's nothing negative against the sport world. I think that some of the sport guys out there and the sport people are fanatical with their dogs in a good way. They put so much time and energy that I wish that sometimes the police side would match that or put that energy into it. But we both agreed that, we had this dog that was given to us, and they were like, this dog has done sport work and done this and that, and like you said, had all this crazy BRN number and whatever. And I think that day we had Greg and Katrina Williams, great people. They came up and joined us, and they were there in the hallway watching as the whole thing happened. Now, this dog, for example, which I try to explain people, we get that all the time. Especially, I would be in Chick-fil-A and somebody would come up and say, "Hey, I've got this great German Shepherd, this great Malinois that would be a great police dog." Mm-hmm. They don't understand what it takes to be. You have to be well-rounded. They have to be a complete dog to be able to do police work, in my opinion. So after this dog was given to us, we noticed, honestly, the dog looked like it had rabies the first couple of days we were doing anything. I mean, it would, in front of this dog, your blood would go to your feet. You're thinking, holy crap, man, this dog is just a monster.
Yeah.
But a lot of that, as you guys know, a lot of that is for show.
Yep.
A lot of times, and
Sure.
it's like, stay the hell away from me. I'm going to be nasty as shit.
Sure.
And stay away from me because I'm afraid for you to come in
Right.
and really confront me.
Right.
So we got the idea to kind of show that, and we did, and we got a lot of backlash from that too. You know, and everybody's going to have their opinion. You're always going to have your internet trolls. You're going to have the people that are just, you know, that can take 10 seconds to look at a video and totally judge the dog and the trainer and, you know, and be negative about it. It drives me crazy.
Keyboard warriors.
Yeah, and I try not to get into that. It's
Yeah.
just, it gets ridiculous. But we did want to show that, that how that dog would react. And then we brought in another dog afterward, another dog that was trained, that we had trained through the police department. And once he came out and was in the same scenario, he didn't back down. He was relentless on the fight. He understood it wasn't for show.
So, can you actually take a dog that maybe Sam put through that test or you put through that test, to where you just simply screamed at the dog as it was coming at you and it just backed off? Can you take that same dog and essentially give it what it needs to get to the level that these police departments need it to be at?
I think that's one of the biggest problems out there right now in the nation, because they find ways. It's I don't want to call it a cover up, but you can choreograph something with a dog to make their confidence come out and they understand that this is not a bad thing. The problem that I have is that when you get into that level of that different level of stress, when you are in the woods at 2 o'clock in the morning looking for a suspect that just robbed somebody or a carjacking, you need to depend on that dog. If gunfire erupts or something happens, that level of stress could make that dog revert back to what it originally was. So for me, I have to have a solid heart. I think you totally can build confidence, but I'm looking for those faults under any kind of stress that are basically going to get somebody killed.
Yeah, makes sense. So do you think it's a breeding thing or do you think it's a trainer thing?
No, I honestly, again, it's got to be the dog in front of me. It doesn't matter to me, and I listened to your show from last week too, and what Cody was talking about.
Said the same thing.
It doesn't matter. You know, you get out on the field. I'm looking at that specific dog. I can see the weaknesses or the loopholes in the dog. Sometimes loopholes are from training that you can fill. It's not a problem, but that's got to have a solid, confident dog, solid heart with that dog, and you know, you try to push that dog to the brink of its level of what you can get out of the dog, and then just like what Cody was talking about, you don't want to break a dog. Anybody in a suit can break any dog.
Yeah.
So to me,
just take the suit off and let's say that's one of the clips in the movie actually.
Yes.
That man, that was incredible. I think you were handling, maybe I can't recall, and I believe Sam was decoyed, nothing on, shorts and a t-shirt. Mm-hmm. And here's this Mal that Paul was handling, had it on a lead, and Sam was just sitting there getting the dog going, getting him ramped up, and took off running like a suspect. And Paul sent his dog. And as I'm watching that, I'm like, oh, fuck, here we go. Mm-hmm. And Paul called him back, and the dog hit the brakes and came back to you. Like that, it's an incredible, I'd love to see that in person,
We were totally going to push that to a different level that day, and I talked Sam out of it completely because we were originally going to set up, and it actually was Mark, a guy named Mark, that was handling that dog.
Okay, got it.
But fantastic dog, fantastic control, and like we were talking about in the break room earlier, for me, your obedience is super, super important.
Mm-hmm.
Not from times in the past where people didn't believe in it. I totally believe in obedience.
Yeah.
And I believe bite work is an obedience exercise. So they're out there, and we were confident that the dog would down. And we actually did that same thing a few times at demos. We did it one of the national demos for the USPCA down in Charles County, where we sent 2 dogs. And we did it with Sam, had nothing. He shot a gun, and he had no equipment on. There was no protection for him, but he was that confident in our dogs going into that down in that recall. So we were going to push the limits that day. Sam actually wanted to slip the dog. and then have Mark put the dog into a down in midair after he flew past Sam.
Oh my God!
But the problem is that if the dog gets a hold of Sam, you know, it's hospital time without a question. It's not going to be a nip. And that Dino is one of the hardest biting Malinois I've ever taken a bite from. So I had to talk Sam out of that. So we ended up running that. The filmmaker, at the time, he wanted to see everything, but I did sincerely. It was not staged. I said,
The filmmaker is like, "Yeah, motherfucker, do
like,
it,
yeah.
do it."
He's like, "Do it." Everybody wanted to see it. Sam's looking at me, and I'm like, you know, I enjoy seeing Sam get bit. It's funny as shit to me, and we have fun. We have so much fun together. But that day, I was just like, no, this is going to be bad.
And that's the cool thing about you guys. I highly recommend you guys watching this video. It's I don't know if it's supposed to be free. I don't know if I.
Yes, no, it absolutely is. You know,
I totally watched it on YouTube. I'm not gonna.
The original. We put it out originally on Vimeo on a paid to try to recover some money because basically Sam and I were the ones that put that thing together.
Yeah.
It came out of our own pocket.
Yeah.
And then and it got to the point where I'm like, you know what? I would rather people see it and know it and see it. And then, like you said, I can't be humble enough when people like you and people come out of the woodwork and say, hey, I'm over here. Me and my 3-year-old were watching this. Me and my dogs were watching this, you know, in the scout car at night. And we love it. And it means something to them. It represents them. And that's what it was. I wanted it to represent me and represent Sam's point of view and then get it out to people in a very realistic way.
And the chemistry that you and Sam have on the film is...
Oh, we hate each other.
It's hilarious, man. I'm dying. When you guys are sitting in the living room or wherever you're at doing the interviews and they're just giving each other shit back and forth, and it's like... It's almost like you guys forgot you were filming a movie, but they ended up using those clips. So it's completely natural and raw, and the chemistry between you two is incredible.
Yeah.
That you two linked up, and you know, the whole story, Sam's story, is on the movie, and you know how he got involved with Paul, and it really is something to see. I want to go back a little bit to what we were speaking about earlier with the nerves of the dogs and stuff like that. Do you feel like, because I do, and I'm new in this part of the industry. You know, I'm fairly green when it comes to decoying and you know the protection sports and you know all that stuff. Do you feel like egos get in the way?
Absolutely. I think that's actually the funny thing that you said that is that I start my seminars by going in there, and my first statement is that you leave your ego at the door.
Yeah.
You guys know the whole thing. If us 3 are trainers in this room, what are 2 out of the 3 trainers going to agree to? These 2 are going to agree to what the other one's doing wrong. It doesn't matter the combination of the 3. I couldn't stand that. I couldn't stand that as a young handler. I couldn't stand that when I came through, just beginning in Canine and seeing that cockiness. Honestly, it's bullshit. And you have some guys out there, and to me, sometimes the quietest guys are the ones that have more knowledge than anybody.
Yeah.
I've run into handlers that don't say nothing. They've had 75 bites on the street, good apprehensions of tracking down the most heinous criminal that they can find.
Yeah.
But I totally started out by saying that, and you do. And honestly, the way it is most of the time in class, you'll get a couple guys that are just kind of standoffish from the beginning. And I'm like, look, I'm going to tell you from the beginning, my dad was a cop, and I think that was a huge part of my background. He basically told me, you cannot be cocky out there or ever overconfident. You're always going to be learning stuff. You learn from everything that you can in every situation. But don't come out there with an ego and cause people to shut down on you immediately. Because I know, again, as a young handler, when I would get in a class, if somebody started running their mouth about something, I just was shut down completely. So I tell people, look, and I had probably 15 failures before I had my first apprehension in real life, and I had a top Malinois, top dog out of the class of experienced handlers.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, and I did. I got a little cocky. I'm like, hell, my dog's top dog. You know, he knows how to do all this shit. And I get out there, and it was failure after failure after failure until I finally said, no, not going to happen. I have to actually make this dog work for me in a real life situation.
And I feel like it's very easy to get cocky in this industry, and you have to consciously make an effort if you're a trainer to not do it, because what happens is, you know, like, for example, when I first got started with dog training years back, You put out a couple of good dogs, and all of a sudden you're like, I'm the fucking best. You know what I mean? And then you get a dog to wake you up and say, no, you're not the fucking best. And with I feel like with this industry, with the business that we are all in, handler, trainer, you're constantly learning. Like you can, I don't know who I was talking to the other day. It was Kelly, and maybe it was Sean. We were talking about being an expert, and in my mind, like to me, I don't think a dog trainer can ever call themselves an expert. That's something for other people to call you in this industry. Mm-hmm. I would never call myself an expert in animal behavior because it's constantly evolving. I'm constantly learning. If somebody else wants to call me an expert, thank you. But but I would never do that. You know what I mean? And it's about leaving your egos at the door, because if you don't, in your line of work, people can die. Like, I mean, that's the truth. Is if you are a police canine vendor and you think you're the best, fuck you. You're an idiot. And I'm going to say it right now, because you're going to get people killed. That's just the fact of the matter. So leave your egos at the door and make it about the dogs and their progression. Let them decide. Let the dogs decide who's good and who's not, because they'll tell you. Mm-hmm. They tell us every day, right?
Yeah, they do. I think Sam had a good saying, too, that was basically a dog on his worst day is a dog and a dog on his best day is a dog.
Yeah.
And so it came down to, and we put that in perspective with, and a specific example is that we were at, and I'm not going to put anybody's name out there or anything like that, but we were in the middle of a national, USPCA national. And it was like the second day, and one of the guys wanted Sam to take a bite from his dog. And the dog was basically at the running right there, like in the top 10 of the whole national. And the person got a little cocky. I think they wanted to show their dog off a little bit. Dog was doing fantastic. And then convinced Sam, like, if Sam would catch his dog or sidestep his dog to see if he was quick enough to do that. So it became a little bit of a challenge. That's where the ego came in.
Yeah.
So they wanted to show this dog out in the middle of the field while everybody's eating lunchtime. All the judges, all the the president of the USPCA and everything, and they get out there in front of everybody and take the dog out and get the dog ready to go on Sam on just a simple straight out, and send the dog. Dog takes about 5 steps and then just locks down. Will not engage Sam whatsoever. And Sam was in a full suit, obvious suit.
Yeah.
So it was a shock and awe to that person, because he's like, what the hell is going on? Why did my dog just do that?
Yeah.
In front of everybody?
Yeah.
Well, the dog had never had a black decoy.
Oh.
Never. So Sam, luckily, Sam immediately shed the jacket, tried to bait him in to just take the jacket and run off the field happily, something. But if you would have seen this dog outside of that, you would have think this dog's a killer, a beast.
Yeah.
And then when that happened, it was horrible. And that was one of the biggest lessons I'll ever learn. You don't let your ego get in the way.
Yeah.
Because I can go out there and say that I'm pretty confident that my dog is going to do something. I've trained for this. But that doesn't mean he's going to do that.
Right.
And the difference with me and law enforcement side is that I've got to adapt quickly and adjust and expect the problems and problem solve immediately when something goes wrong.
Yeah.
Simple.
And that's one thing on that side of the industry that I've noticed is I feel like, and I'm not pointing fingers by any means, but I feel like it's easier to develop an ego off of bite work versus obedience or pet world. You know what I mean? And the reason why is because you on the internet and whatever, you see a lot of trainers saying, or handlers, my dog bites the hardest, that you'll ever see. Again, pH 5,000, blah 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 blah. What I don't get is that just, even if that is true, that's the dog. Like, why is your ego high? Yeah, right. I mean, yeah, I get it. You guided him, you trained him in that direction, but a lot of that shit is genetics, right? I mean, a lot of the dog is born with those nerves, right out the gate, or a hard. You're not teaching a dog how hard, bite down harder. Right. No, that's only 130 pounds of pressure. I want you to go to one, or whatever the number is. I don't know, but I'm really big in that with the ego thing, man. And that's one thing I really liked about that movie was it was very obvious that you guys left your egos at the door if there were ever any. It was very obvious. And it's even obvious to this day after I watched that movie because you're not heavy on social media. You're not getting into these decoy debates with a bunch of people. You're what you're doing is you're going around the world training dogs and training departments. And man, I have a lot of respect for you, Paul. I really do. And we just met, so that it's just something that I feel like is rare. When it comes to this industry. Now, what I can say is there are a lot of incredible trainers that I have met, man.
Absolutely.
That do exactly that. They leave their egos at the door and they train the dogs and they make it about the dogs. Because at the end of the day, in your field, you have to make it about the dogs because, again, they can save lives.
Yeah.
And I want to touch on one more thing with you, if you don't mind. You made a comment earlier about, obedience being such a important part in police canines. And I couldn't agree with that more, and I feel like, and again, this is just from an outsider looking in. I'm not in that world by any means, but I feel like that a lot of departments, they just want their dogs to be as raw and savage as possible, and that's why they can't necessarily go to community events and get petted by, fourth and fifth graders and stuff like that. I feel like all that's important, and you nailed it earlier when you were talking about send-offs, because the truth is, example, you are a police officer, Canine, and you're on a foot pursuit. Guy has a knife on him. Your dog's chasing him, you're chasing him. All of a sudden the guy stops, throws his knife on the ground, puts his hands in the air. If your dog continues to go and
that's coming back on our ass.
50 people watching that, that's a problem.
Absolutely.
Yes. That's a problem for the canine department of that specific city or county, right?
Yeah.
So that call off has to be pretty incredible, and a call off is obedience.
Absolutely.
So that kind of brings me back to making the dog social. What are your views on if these dual purpose, single purpose canines should be social or not?
No, I believe that I've come through. I guess I got started back in the mid '90s for canine. On the department, and back then at different times you had different agencies that believed that they wanted to have a dog that was, like I said, a bear trap on the end of a leash that would just snap at everybody, stay back away from me, and be real nasty and aggressive. And some people did have success with that. They had to keep it was a huge liability. They had to keep that dog separate from anyone because the dog is basically going to bite anyone. But through the years, I saw what I preferred through the years was I had a nasty dog in the very beginning, and it was miserable not being able to take that dog around anybody, always feeling like I had a loaded gun everywhere that I went. So, and knock on wood, and luckily that I never had an accidental bite with the dog. It was something that was always a liability, always something I had to think about. But through the years, no. To me, you need an obedient dog, and you need as social as you can get the dog. Now, I don't want to put it out there and say that every department, if they got 11 handlers, they're all 11 are going to be social. No, you're always going to have the dogs that are good working dogs that have that edge that you're not going to be able to make very social.
Sure.
But on the whole, you want to try to make a dog that you can basically, that I describe it as being very neutral to any situation. We bring a dog in right here. He doesn't come in going, who the hell's that in the closet? What is that like? Who are you doing? He just walks in like, hey, what's up? Hey, what's going on, guys? And then if I say down, he just downs. And then if I say watch him, he's going to go, I'm getting ready to bite him. And then I say bite him, he bites the shit out of you.
Yeah.
With no hesitation. I don't want him thinking about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But that's obedience. And a lot of guys, I can't emphasize it enough. We were just talking also about using the down command. I'm a huge proponent of using that down command and instilling it in your dog at any given time. Not going to reveal any names, but a guy, a good friend of mine that's on DC Police, had a pursuit where chasing a suspect, went over an overpass. The dog was right on his ass. The dog would have jumped over the overpass if he would not been able to say down and put the dog into a down. So he was able to down the dog.
Wow.
The suspect survived, but he got broken up pretty bad. Who knows what would have happened with the dog?
Yeah.
So to me, it's extremely important.
Yeah.
And I wanted to bring something back up from one of your episodes too. Y'all were talking about agility, and I haven't heard the follow-up on the agility.
Yeah.
Your feeling on that. And I'll give you my perspective on that. I love agility just for the mere fact that, again, it's kind of like an obedience thing. Like I condition the response of my dogs, for instance, and this is a perfect example, and I do this at most of my seminars. Most dogs are taught to jump over a chain link fence, okay, with the suspect behind. They'll jump over and everything. I always use that conditioned response to give that up command right when they're at that brink of jumping, no matter where they're at, whether they're getting into my car and kenneling. I condition them to, if I say up, they're knowing they're getting ready to jump through a car window, through things like that. So I'll let guys go out there and they'll go, my dog's done this 100 times, but they'll go out there and they won't give that up command like they do in agility. And the dog will just stop right at that fence. And sometimes it can be a 3-foot fence.
Yeah, and then
they run back and forth. And I'm like, that's the problem solving that you need to be ready to get through real quick. Because what happens in that situation is the suspect just jumped over another fence and now he's not in sight anymore. Now you turn it into a track, which sometimes can lead to now he's disappeared. You don't find him.
Or hurting someone.
Exactly.
Exactly. And, when you're left there looking like an idiot in front of the chain link fence, or picking your dog up and throwing him over and helping him. And at that point, what good is it having a dog, that's working at that point? So no, I completely agree with that. And I never really thought about it. And, that aspect, with agility. But yeah, I could totally see how that totally plays into real life.
Well, the other thing too is that I had, and I'll give you a quick thing on this. One of my first apprehensions that I was supposed to have, a guy had barricaded himself under a van. They had him surrounded on a perimeter, and the guy was holding on to the chassis, and he was pulling himself up so he couldn't be seen. And then when he would get tired, he would let himself down from it. So we knew he was under there. So we were at a distance. We didn't know if he was armed or not. So I was the first one with a dog on the scene, and I'm trying to get my dog to, go under and find this guy. Well, and we'll get into this a little bit later too if you got time, but my dog was very, very trained for certification. Wasn't trained very much for the street, and this was part of my failures in the beginning. He was trained to go up, and we simulated this many times where we would go into an open car parking lot, and just like you were talking about with Ben, with your dog, how instead of it taking 8 hours to find somebody that's hidden in 500 cars, in 2 minutes they're hitting that scent cone and they're finding where that's at. Well, my dog was taught that once he found that car, roof, roof, roof.
Right.
And what happens? The door pops open, the sleeve's presented, and he gets a bite.
Yeah.
So what do you think my dog did in that situation? He circled that van, and this is the whole ego thing, too. I've got top dog, this is a badass dog. And I'm watching my dog run around, and I'm watching a guy looking at my dog and lowering himself under the chassis to breathe again, and then pulling himself back up as my dog's running around. He finally sat at the driver's door, and like an idiot was just like, rop, 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 rop. And I'm pissed because I'm like, what the hell? So I have to recall my dog. I tried to tell him the agility command of crawl. He had no idea what I was talking about at the time. And I had to retract my dog, and another handler from a different agency came over that was that had the same situation with a low apprehension, walked right up, went right under, and I felt like an ass. I felt like he got the guy. No, dog wasn't hurt. Nobody else was hurt. He apprehended the guy. So I went back and had to check myself and say, okay, the ego shit is out the window, and I need to really focus on real life training now, because certification training is great to get through certification, but it has to be realistic. And that's it.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you're not doing this for fun.
No, you're
right?
not.
You're doing this to protect the citizens in your community, and so is your dog.
Yeah.
And if your dog's not able to do that because it hasn't been exposed to a certain aspect, then people can get hurt.
Exactly.
So that's amazing info, man. Let me ask you a question, and you may not be able to answer this, or you may not want to answer this. If you had to put a percentage on it, do you think that, let's just take, because you've traveled the world working with, police departments and stuff, right? What would you say the percentage is of dogs that are good to go, ready for work, from the dogs that without a doubt are going to fail in certain situations?
I actually bring that up in class too when I'm doing these seminars, and we talk about that. And what was amazing to me is, and we talked about this outside, is that I assumed that I would find this kind of pocket somewhere in the world where these amazing dogs were coming out, these amazing handlers were coming out, and they were just totally squared away. It's, for me so far, it's not that way. You have good trainers. You have the same thing everywhere worldwide. The dogs are the same dogs. I assumed that we would find some kind of crazy spot that would have these fantastic dogs, and your percentages would be like all 15 are good to go.
Right.
It's not been that way.
No.
And so when we talk about it in class, I equate it to this. I've been to some that have been outstanding. Some have been a little bit subpar. But the majority is that if I take an average of 15 to 20 people in a seminar and they're running their dogs, I would say that on average, you have 3 or 4 dogs that I would feel like they were at my level of, I would be very comfortable and confident working them on the street. Totally no, they're well trained. You can tell that the handlers put a lot of training in them. They get a lot of exposure. There's nothing that really surprises them or shocks them or makes them shut down. Then you have, I would say, about 10 to 12 dogs that are in that middle area where if they had a little bit better training sometimes, or a little bit more, and I didn't mean to say better training, maybe more exposure. Okay. Or maybe thinking more a little bit outside the box.
Sure.
If they would have that more exposure, I think that would bring that number up to the top end.
Okay.
But then I also see on average probably about 3, maybe 4 dogs that I will personally talk to people afterward and say, you have to identify what you are working with. I know that some of the small departments will not replace this dog. You're going to have this dog for 10 years. And I basically tell them that be ready for this dog to fail on you and do what you need to do to not get hurt or killed.
Wow.
Because it comes down to your family. And if you're relying on this dog, and I'll show them in different scenarios. And if the dogs do fail, I've had some dogs that just will shut down and run right back into the car and bed themselves down. And that's where I was talking about earlier with that stress level. Sometimes that dog on certification would come out there looking like a freaking rock star.
Yeah.
But then in the real life of not even that much pressure, totally shuts down, leaves that handler exposed. So the same thing that I did on the street. I basically called it a 3-second advantage with that dog. That dog has got to give me that 3-second advantage with the nastiest people out there. After that, that's all I'm really expecting that dog to give me. Then it's going to be on me. If that dog doesn't give me that advantage, then I'm going to have to shoot someone or be shot.
Yeah.
Simple.
Wow. That's deep. So, I mean, in your opinion, there's dogs out on the streets right now that shouldn't be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not really.
Yeah, I mean, we're not calling anybody specific out.
But I had one person, I'm not even going to tell the state, but one person that came to me during a seminar and they were working a tri-county as a SWAT dog. And this dog would not even enter a room for an apprehension for somebody in a suit. And the problem is that a lot of times the upper management, they're blind to it.
Gotcha.
They're like, you know what? If you want to be in Canine, you work this dog.
Yeah.
And that is detrimental to the officers.
And they don't understand.
They don't.
Yeah, they don't get it. The people making the decisions don't understand what's needed.
They don't.
So what can change, man? Like what can the your side of the world, the working decoys, the police canine vendors, what can they do to help?
I think dog selection is a big part of it from the very beginning of it.
Okay.
But I think also is that management needs to put back into your 15 years experience of you as a trainer going, let me pick and choose the dog that I want to work. Mm-hmm. If we do have a problem that kind of rears its ugly head, we have to, I know it's monetary, I know the money's expensive, everything for the dogs, but do we want to replace this dog? Or do we want to go and knock on the spouse's door and say that your husband was just killed because this dog didn't do what he was supposed to do? So to me, give it more into the trainers. And I know a lot of departments don't want to hear that and they don't do that. Or, not to the fault of their own, but some of the smaller departments have to train with other people. So they don't have their own programs.
Yeah.
And so they're at the discretion of, multiple counties coming together. But that's where it's important to me. I think if they could change that a little bit more, it would be better. But it does go back to dog selection initially. I know that years ago, for me, the quantity was lower and the quality was extremely high on the dogs you were picking from. But nowadays, point blank, there is so many people wanting a dog, and like you said, if it has this BRN number, if it has this thing, holy shit, it's money, and they buy.
And I would have to assume there's a lot more vendors out now.
There's a ton
because
of
of
more vendors.
that.
There's tons of more vendors, and
So bidding wars are happening.
Exactly.
Counties aren't as wealthy as they used to be.
Yep.
And sometimes possibly going with the lowest bidder.
they get stuck with that, and that's what I was going to say. Some of the departments get stuck with that because they're not allowed to choose. If somebody comes in underbid, then they're stuck with dealing with those dogs.
Yeah.
So that's the thing.
Which is going to, if they're, if they realize the problem that they have, now they're going to be spending additional income or, additional monies on training to try to unfuck this situation that we have for the next 10 years,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, man, I just feel like there should be, and I know there are standards for it, very basic level standards, I guess. But I feel like there should be an approval list to get on to be a vendor. Because right now there's
Most of it's word of mouth. I mean, for
Yeah.
us, it's word of mouth.
right, and that's kind of crazy, right? Because what about the counties who've never had a canine department because they've never been large enough to have one, and all of a sudden, they're growing and they're like, oh, let's get a dual purpose, and they're clueless unless they talk to neighboring counties, which I would hope that they would at least do, but they're clueless. If they just go off of a strictly, a bidding war,
Yeah.
counties do what counties do. It's not a secret. They try to save money. And I'm not against that. I completely understand that, but it's also about allocating the money in the right place and not just doing it because, not just buying some random dog from some random vendor just because chief told you to do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And man, it's just, I don't know. What would your advice be to police officers, canine officers?
The dog world, like I said, I know a lot of people I haven't met in person, but I'm starting to really know a lot of their names and looking forward to meeting a lot of people over the next few years. But my recommendation is that reach out to these people that, can give you a recommendation, people that are reputable. Now, listen, the ego thing is a huge thing out there, but then you've also got this poser thing out there that drives me absolutely crazy of these people that just kind of sprout from nowhere, and now they telling everybody that they're the best in the world and they've done this and they've got this one dog from this dog and they're the best in the world. And people are just falling for that and meeting up with these people and taking their advice and going through them to get a dog that turns out to be absolute shit for police work.
It's kind of the same in the pet world, too. I mean, a lot of
Oh, yeah.
people get dogs that have champion show bloodlines, and they're like, why is my dog anxious all the time? I don't know, Karen.
I know. Yeah,
So-
I know. It's to me, I would just try to do as much research as you can. I was thinking of I was just thinking something too, that a lot of times too, that is a problem out there, and I wish these guys would knock this shit off, is that we're very cliquish in the law enforcement too. You
Yeah.
guys know that.
Yeah.
That it's like, listen, you can learn from anybody. I've had, like you said, I've had Gary down and everything like that, and I'm sucking up what I can from everybody, and I use what I can. It's my bag of tools for whatever I can use.
Sure.
Because it can apply to one dog, or maybe not a dog for 100 dogs that I see, and then it'll apply then, but at least I have it, that knowledge. But it can be very, very cliquish. And so sometimes you can go to places, and I've gone to these seminars to where these guys are a county apart, and they don't work together at all.
Yeah.
Because their program's better than their program. And they're just kind of asses about it. And that's why the whole ego thing I really bring up and say, knock this crap out. The other thing that I like to do that I don't have any secrets about what I do. I just try to make it as real as I can. I try to put as much exposure out there for the handlers and the dogs. I relax a little bit on the tactics of the handlers initially, because it's more for exposure for the dog, and then you bring your tactics back up.
Yeah.
But I don't want you trying to send a dog from a down behind a car 100 yards to apprehend a static decoy when they're going to run in circles. Why waste your time?
Right.
You know what I mean? Expose yourself, get the dog on target, and then you start building your distance, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But what I like to do is, and I suggest for people to do this, is that when you are doing seminars and you're working with people, when you run your dog through, Joe, you put your dog away and you come back as a backup officer. You get to see for your own eyes 10 different ways, 15 different ways that somebody else is doing their tactics and how their dogs do. So you, without me saying anything, you get your own judgment on, damn, that dog is solid as shit.
Yeah.
What have they been doing with that dog? Oh, I like that. They do this. They got that solid down. So you're learning the whole time. And I think that's invaluable for what I do. And I get a lot of good feedback from guys that I go and work with about that.
So when you're traveling around doing these seminars for the departments, you're not so much just saying, you're not just going there evaluating, saying, okay, 15 dogs, these 12 are good, these 3, right? You're teaching these departments on how they can improve their program, how they can get their dogs better, how they can select their next dogs a little bit better, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, that's kind of what's going on when you go to these seminars.
Yeah, and they see improvement right in front of them. I mean, they see some of these dogs. Sometimes you'll see a dog that everybody assumes is pretty weak, but it's just because he hasn't had that exposure. Tap into his heart a little bit. Tap into what people will agree or disagree with a fight drive. See what this dog's going to do when he's pressed, and see what happens with this dog. And one of the military ones that we did down locally at Fort AP Hill, one of the guys came in, and some of the military guys have a really hard way to go. They basically are given a dog sometimes every 2 to 3 weeks. They'll switch a dog, so they're handling a new dog they haven't even handled.
Right.
And these kids are 21, 22 years old, even younger sometimes, and they're out there with a brand new dog, not having a clue of anything about this dog, and they're being thrown into the middle of this. And when that happens, it's like I slow it down. I don't like people getting bit up by their own dogs, all that stuff. But I slow it down and I try to work with these guys. And one of the specific ones was a younger guy that came in there, and everybody thought that this dog had problems. It's just that he had not had the proper training or exposures to really bring it out of him. Once his heart was able to flourish, he became a freaking beast. By the end of the 3 days, he was a beast.
Yeah.
So everybody was like, where the hell did that come from? That is not my magic whatsoever. It's just looking at it from different angles, problem solving, and going, why don't we try doing this exposure with them or whatever?
And you don't label by breed, right? I mean,
No, I don't.
Yeah, because Cody, I don't know if you listened to last week's show, but Cody I asked him a similar question. I said, or Nick did. He said, do you feel like the Malinois are kind of taking over the police side of the industry? Because, I mean, I feel like it's almost apparent that it is. But Cody said, I don't care.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter to me. Actually, he said, I hope not.
Right.
Because he doesn't, in his mind, he doesn't, when he walks on the field, he doesn't see breed. He doesn't see gender of the dog. Mm-mm. He doesn't see pH 62,000. He doesn't, you know what I mean? He doesn't see whatever, titles are attached to the dog. He sees the dog. Mm-hmm. And then he says, all right, send your dog at me. Let's see what he's got. And then he ensures that whatever the case, he's pushing the dog, and the dog always wins, and at the end of the day, I think that's pretty important, yeah?
Oh, it's absolutely important. And I call it basically unlocking the combination of that dog that's in front of you. Everyone's got a different one. Just because it works with one dog doesn't mean it's going to work with that specific dog. And then, yes, when you get down to it's funny, in Australia, great bunch of guys over there, and it was eye-opening to me too, but they are predominantly German Shepherd. We had one Mal that we worked out of that group, but they were predominantly, and then we had a couple Rottweilers that were in an open seminar that we did. I got a Rottweiler to go through a window, which I thought was
that's pretty
fantastic, and they were so excited about that. But the way that I have seen the dogs, I handled 3 Shepherds and 3 Malinois in the department over the years, and again, because of being a trainer toward the end of my career, I had to shuffle dogs once in a while, or if I would get an opportunity to take a stronger dog or something, a problem dog, I would take that dog and then give up the dog that I had to another trainer to kind of expand our unit. So I had a lot of exposure with that. But my best analogy and we did this one night with the Shepherd and the Malinois, we had an open fence. We had a fence that had an open gate.
Right.
And right at the open gate, I had a guy stand right behind the fence, about 10 feet over from the open gate. and had the guys bring out Malinois and then bring out shepherds. Well, when they would bring out the shepherds, a lot of times they would come and they would see the guy behind the fence and they wouldn't even bark. They would just go, wait a minute. You would see him thinking, and they would go, I'm going to go, there's another way around here. And they would go and find the gate and come back.
Yeah.
The Malinois would lock in that fence area and try to go, it's going to take me 3 hours, but I'm going to eat through this metal, and then I'm going to kick the shit out of you. And
Why does that not surprise you?
It was honestly, but when we did this to everybody, we were laughing our ass off because, we have so much fun doing training anyway. But
Yeah.
it was awesome to see. But to me, a lot of times, not to say all of them are that way, but most of the time, the shepherds are more of a thinking breed for me. They think, they analyze a little bit more. And I think the Malinois are a little bit more reactive.
Yeah.
So
a little bit more spazzier, huh?
They're definitely spazzy.
Energy for days,
Yes.
man. Good Lord. And I would have to assume that's, one of the reasons. I know there's several, but that's one of the reasons why, a lot of police departments are kind of switching and converting over to Malinois is because of that energy. I have one, and I can fucking do whatever I want with him for 5 hours.
Yeah.
To where he's, balls to the wall. He'll take a 10-minute nap, and then he's right back to fifth gear. And it's like, geez, dude, do you have an off switch? No, he does not have an off switch.
No, they don't.
So anyhow, what about handlers, police handlers? Like, do you think that we're at a good place with the training that's coming out of just the handler section? You know what I mean? Not necessarily how the dog's nerves are, but are the cops handling these dogs properly? Are they taking necessary steps to ensure that they're not fucking the training up?
On a whole, I think that yes, most of the ones that I've worked with, they have great intentions and they do well with their dogs. I think some of them still lack a little bit of exposure. I think some of them lack good decoys. I think that's a big part of it too.
Sure.
And kind of getting into that a little bit, there's a difference. Most of the failures that I come across on the department and my own failures and people that I run into everywhere, static decoys are the hugest problem. And it can be a simple burglary, a guy standing behind a curtain, not moving. You get somebody prone in static, it's very, very hard for that dog, unless they've had that apprehension before, to engage. A lot of times they might initially put their mouth on them, but if that person doesn't come alive, like in training, where we were taught a long time ago, as soon as the dog puts his mouth on you, you're screaming and you're shaking and everything. I try to get away from that as much as possible because you will see, for me, even with experienced dogs that have bites on the street, when I throw that at them and their dog's going and initially bite somebody static, even though it's in a thin suit, their dogs will be like, they'll take it to them for about a second, and then they're like, they're not coming alive. What's going on? So then they'll go to another area and try to bite them, and then sometimes they'll just give up and look back and go, the dude ain't moving. That can get you killed. And so, and one of the recent ones, a Virginia State guy told me specifically about an incident where he had somebody that was laying up in an attic space that was under, that was basically under, what you call it? I'm sorry. Insulation, yes. Packed himself under insulation. And so they went up there, and he had the SWAT team with him, went up there, searched, dog came out, like, no, there's nobody here. They brought the dog back down, and then when the SWAT went back up in there, they found the guy laying under that. And they asked him what happened. The dog came up and found him. He sniffed him, but he wasn't moving. He just sitting there looking at him, blinking.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't
Playing
engage.
dead.
Yeah. He's like, well, you're not the threat. You're not the guy I'm looking for. And they walked him. That can get you killed.
Yeah.
So the thing is, I try to throw to these guys, let's throw some things that you might not have seen and prepare you. So if you have seen it in training at least, or close to as real as possible, it could save your ass.
And that's kind of, to bring up Cody Talent again, sometimes I'll see online how, people are kind of saying, of course, you're going to have haters in everything you do, and the haters will come out saying, oh, why are you wearing masks, and stuff like that. And he's like, look, man, he's like, I'm training dogs for police departments, for the military. And he's like, how odd is it that a bank robber would wear a mask and run away? I want to make sure that dog can actually take him down, and not be nervy when he sees a mask or something weird on him. You know what I mean? Because it could happen in real life. So I feel like that's kind of your thing as well. Is let's think outside the box
Always.
and let's make this shit as realistic as possible and as safely as possible also, at the same time. And I almost feel like that's what more of the industry needs is less egos and more realistic training.
I totally agree, and I understand, and that's why I usually don't get into any kind of argument with people on Facebook, because you're going to always have people that take a different opinion. Something specific that happened is that we would do a scenario with an active shooter and to use a dog in that situation. And I was actually on the DC active shooter down at the Navy Yard with another canine handler, and we were back on a perimeter, and the lookout at the time was 3 different people. It was nothing close to the actual shooter. So we're looking at thousands of people running out toward us. You don't know who's what, so it's a very, very hairy situation. But I would do that scenario once in a while, predominantly doing it for the exposure of the multiple gunfire. The thing that I like to use is that we were so prone from before having the decoy of the one, making the pop gun go off, and then the dog knew to get them. But what happens when you reverse that? What happens when you're friendly, your officers are firing? You don't want them targeting gunfire. You want them targeting the suspect no matter what they're doing. Mm-hmm. So we work on that. And so we did something, and we one of the guys up in Ohio at the time at at West Virginia seminar, he had said, "Hey, can I run something a little bit different with this?" And I said, "Absolutely." He goes, "I want to see when we run our stack team down toward the sound of gunfire, can I put my dog up on my shoulder?" He goes, "I teach a first aid class where a dog gets wounded around everybody and all the chaos." And he would teach the guys to throw the dog up on his shoulder and then get him out, making sure the dog's not biting at everybody and just getting the dog used to that. And I said, absolutely. Well, I did that, and I put that in one of the videos that we had. Yeah. And my God, the people crushed me. You would never do that. You never do that. My thing is that it's hard to say what you will and will not do under a situation. And what came back to my mind was years ago up in Pennsylvania, the active shooter that went into the Amish school. Yeah. Okay, and I'm thinking, okay, what if I was there with my last dog, or what if I was there with my dog, and I happened to be at the right spot at the right time, and I could use my dog as a tool to help me or help somebody? I absolutely would have used it. It doesn't mean that I would every time or think about, oh, you're going to do this. No. Yeah. But if there was a situation like that where I could use my dog as a distraction to give me that 3-second advantage and shoot that guy, you're going to have to hit my dog right in the coconut to kill him. If you don't, he's going to still come after you. Right. So if that could be a diversion enough for me to take somebody out, absolutely I would do that. And people don't agree with that. They're like, you don't want to let your dog get killed. That's not an ambush situation. That's something realistic that you got to make that decision in a split second in what you're going to do. Yeah. So you can tell I'm a little bit passionate about it, but
and I can appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, I can appreciate that because, as we say on every show, you can't hide passion by any means. And I feel like the most passionate trainers are some of the best trainers, or most of the best trainers. And so I mean, I can't thank you enough for what you guys do, and for the seminars that you're going around the world providing, for these police departments. And what do you have coming up? Do you have anything?
I'm supposed to go to Ecuador at the beginning of March, and going down there it's a combination military and police. And then I'm planning to, the bigger trip is going to be out into Australia. I'm going back out to Queensland and bouncing all around. I've got a connection out there right now, and they're putting together different seminars. So it's a mix of military, security, and police seminars. So I'll be there for about 2 months. Awesome. But it'll be very enjoyable. I love working with the different dogs and different people.
Awesome. And where can people find you at, Paul?
IronDogCanine.com, and under that they can actually go right to the movie if they want to see that. And like I said, I love the feedback from people. Just hearing back from people about and I hope I represented my side of it correct.
I think you did.
And Sam also. I think that his passion is exactly the same as mine about doing this. And it's great because he wants to make sure people come home.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that's everything. Yeah. So IronDogCanine.com, Canine Guardians is the name of the movie. You can do what I did. Go to YouTube, type in Canine Guardians, and you can watch the full thing. I think it's about an hour and 26 minutes. It's worth every single second of watching, in my opinion. Ben, do you have anything going on you want to talk about, or no?
No, sir.
Yep, just going back to work, huh?
Back to work.
Man, appreciate what you do every day, without a doubt. Shout out to Ted over there at Working Dog Radio. If you guys haven't checked out that podcast, please check it out. I listen to every episode. Those guys are doing some great things. Ted just got back from, I think he came from some conference where he interviewed a bunch of people. Anyhow, super great team they have. So huge shout out to those guys for what they're doing on the Working Dog Radio podcast. Nick will be back next week, and we are going to talk about. He's telling me he has some more stories, Sean. He has some more stories from good old Austin, Texas, and his 2-dog seminar that he's got going out there with a entertainer. And so excited about that. Keep an eye out for his first dogs before after video that he will be releasing today on Off Leash Canine Training Headquarters Facebook page, where you are watching this from right now if you're joining us live. And as for me, I don't have a whole lot of stuff going on. I get a dog on Saturday, Adobe, that's coming up from North Carolina. Excited about that. Just going to do some obedience with him. And then my wife and I are going to Vegas for a week on March 4th to just relax, chill out, get away, and, kind of rejuvenate, to start the year off. So anyhow, appreciate everybody tuning in as always. You guys have supported this show, and we've gotten such amazing feedback. Not even just off of the topics that we've discussed, just feedback saying thank you for doing this. So you're welcome. And what I'll say is, again, we don't do this. The only reason we do this is to bring light to the industry, to the pet world, to the working dog world. So if you're a trainer out there, if you're a vet, if you're in the dog industry, reach out to us. We'd love to have you guys on. If there's a disagreement between two trainers about a specific method, come on the show. We'd love to have you. And again, thank you for putting us up at the top 25 of the country on iTunes podcasts. I don't know how we made it to the comedy section, but Jesus, there we are. So, and we will see you next week back with my man Nick White, and talk to you then. There it is.
With Nick and Joe.
Almost lost that.
The Duchess.